QYD effect. Not really happened.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendon already said he could make it.
Don't do this whole... Phil, doesn't do that. He's always but he is a shocking person. You guys got a trophy? No. It was pretty bit.
I like from Rashad Mendon.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report this season, but the final episode of the LOC Report this season, and of course, neither me nor Chris would miss that as we've done every episode this season. How's it going, Chris?
Absolutely, yeah, we wouldn't miss it. It's going well. This is the new frontier. It was 2021. It's the same as 2020, just about.
So far, yes, so far. Actually, worse so far, technically.
In theory. So, but we are still here, broadcasting to you over the 2 years. Hope you had a very happy New Year on whatever you were doing. And yeah, we're here for one final show because we've got to tie up some loose ends. There's some things we do every year in this very show. So yes, strap yourself in because there's not a great deal else you're going to be doing on this cold grey Sunday here in the UK.
No, definitely not. Like you said, we've got the Corona Bowl 12 to recap, losing count now. Corona Bowl 12 to recap. We've also got to reveal some award winners as well, which I'm rapidly trying to find the nominees note in my phone, because I don't know what I've done with it, but we'll do that after. That would be a helpful thing to have, wouldn't it? It seems to have disappeared, which is not good.
You're going to get a full...
Here we go. It's fine. I found it. What we didn't do was decide the winners before we came on, so we can do that live on air, which will be fun for everyone, right?
We absolutely, because I think that there's nothing like a bit of jeopardy to
exactly
to get the mind going.
Exactly. So a fun episode today then for so we'll go straight into it then with the league news. God, we are out of practice. Here's the jingle. You have a few extra days off for Christmas and New Year's, and it all goes to pot. That's how it goes. You don't appreciate, listeners, how much goes into this podcast by me and Chris.
The amount of thought.
Exactly. League news. So obviously we won't talk anything Corona Bowl related. I suppose new-wise, as you said, it's the last episode of the season, so we will probably be taking our usual few months break before we come back with the draft reveal show in April, and then we'll probably start like we did this off-season with the Hall of Fame stuff on a weekly basis sometime around the end of May, start of June, leading into next year. So that's our schedule. In terms of other league stuff, not really any league news to speak of at the moment, other than it is Coach Leach's birthday tomorrow. So I would like to wish Chris a happy birthday.
Thank you. I said even though I can't do anything, I'm not going to be able to do anything anyway because I then don't just do this podcast and actually have a job. Yes, I'm looking forward to it. I have to say as well, there's one more piece of league news that you probably won't be aware of, listeners, but we may well have a new base next year. We may well have a new base because we've been accustomed to the studio that Nate's been sat in the whole time. This has been a place where a lot of things have happened in the past, but yes, I think maybe by the time April comes around, correct me if I'm wrong, Nate, we will have a different place to broadcast from. Yeah,
so me and Becky have had an offer accepted on a house, and fingers crossed it should move along quite quickly, assuming everything goes okay. So yeah, we could the new LOC HQ could be in Whiteley. And that's the home of LOC Media, of course.
Absolutely. This is a cross-town partnership, this is. But I have to say, who knew that the centre of the world, when it comes to this, would be Whiteley, Great Britain? If anyone's interested, check your maps. Check your South Coast, plus 5 miles. There it is. That's it. There we are. We're both dirty northerners. We're north of the M27. It's definitely an exciting time for all. So
definitely, absolutely, and The NFL has New York as their headquarters. We have Wiley. I know where I'd rather be, quite frankly.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I know, I definitely know where I'd rather be. That's not New York. It's not New York. Yes, I would definitely prefer Wiley. No sarcasm in there at all. So, no, yes. Thank you for bringing that up, Chris. Yeah, it's a big milestone for me and Becky. Huge milestone.
Course,
so you can't, over-exaggerate the milestone.
No. Indeed. So, more of a news section than I thought we had. There you go. A good news section. Nice one to finish the year on.
It's a good news section. It's a good news.
So we'll go straight into the next big thing then, which was Corona Bowl XII, which obviously did feature a new Corona Bowl entrant, an experienced one. So we'll leave all the details for the recap. Here we go. Bananators and Always Sunny in Philadelphia Eagles took on each other in Corona Bowl XII last week. It was Bananators. They were seeking their third Corona Bowl title, and they hadn't lost a playoff game since 2009 Corona Bowl I. I'm pretty sure the longest unbeaten streak in the playoffs. Yeah. Meanwhile, for Ross's team, they entered this year without a playoff win. They obviously won the semi-final. Coming in looking for their first Corona Bowl win, and first Corona Bowl win that they did get. First coach who unretired to win a title as well. 180 to 121. So not only a first Corona Bowl win for Ross, also a record for Corona Bowl points by one team, and the Corona Bowl itself as well. Had the highest point total in all Corona Bowls. So we'll take a look down. Ross's team, they fired out of the gate. We can't start anywhere else but Alvin Kamara with 53 points, 6 touchdowns on Christmas Day. What a Christmas present for Ross. And the rich only got richer from there. Mike Evans following up with 30 points. Aaron Rodgers got 33. Stephon Diggs 33. Just an absolute points fest. I believe this was also the highest points by a team in any game this season as well. So what a time to have it. On the other side of the ball for Ollie, 121 points. No, by no means a bad score at all. Just obviously what was on the other side of the board was unwieldy. They got 21 points from Jalen Hurts, 26 points from Jeff Wilson, 12 from Gus Edwards, 20 from Brandon Cooks, 12 from Calvin Ridley, 16 from T. Higgins. So by no means a bad day. And Bananators can at least say they've been in part of the 3 highest scoring Corona Bowls all time. So Ross does take his first Corona Bowl win. The series between these two now, I believe, is 7-4 in favour of Ross. And there you go. Chris, it was quite the Corona Bowl, wasn't it?
It really was. I mean, it wasn't close, and it was never close, really, because at certain times Ollie was ahead, but that was only because Ross hadn't played 3 of his players and some key.
Yeah.
But it was never net close, and as you say, the reason why that is that when a player scores 53 and a bit points by himself, there really is no way back from that. To have one crazy performance in 1 week is something, but to have 2, if there was another 40-50 point on the other side, that really would have made it exciting. But not to be. We said Ross's team had the ability to do things like this, and it came up trumps when it needed to. Rodgers been a real staple of that team all year, a real foundation on which to build. But I'd like to talk more about their receivers and how they've really come on in the last 3 or 4 weeks, because I think midpoint of the season was where the wobble was happening for them potentially. There was a 2 or 3 week wobble in the middle of the season, and it's when Evans and Diggs weren't firing. And since they've maybe hit the last 2 or 3 weeks of the season, they have really taken off. And obviously this week, that's proven to be. Evans and Diggs go for a combined 60, 60, and that's crazy for just 2.
Just to enforce your point there as well, I remember distinctly in a show earlier in the year when we were previewing, we say, Stephon Diggs, book him for 10 points. He's not going to do much more. He's not going to do much less. Other than week 2, that was absolutely the case all the way up until week 14, where, as you say, he just came alive. Yeah, and Mike Evans was a guy, like you said, at the start of the season where everyone was questioning, well, Chris Godwin's the number one, really. You've also got Gronkowski, who's going to siphon touchdowns, and, you know, there's some other good players on the Bucs offense. If Mike Evans isn't getting touchdowns and you haven't got Jameis Winston throwing to him when he's covered, how well is he going to do? And the answer was, well, Godwin was a bit banged up and never really maybe found a stride. Obviously, nothing really emerged around him. The running game wasn't quite prolific, and as you say, you get a great Mike Evans from it as well.
Yeah, that's it, and that's to continue. You know, so that relationship he seems to be building with Brady seems to be only getting stronger. So I think that they do have that clear number one again from that muddled receiving core they had last year with Godwin being a bit booming one week and Evans being another booming another. I just don't think that's going to happen from now. I really think Brady's found his guy.
Definitely.
But yeah, and some handy points. You know, so we like to see if you're not scoring double digits, so you want to be getting the 8-9s because that's how you can keep moving the chains. And the only real downside is Le'Veon Bell against Atlanta, which didn't really work out for anybody. But you know, you couldn't play anyone else. Look, nothing else. There's nothing else of any note on the bench, so he maximised what he could have played. And I don't think he would have played Latavius Murray anyway. So yeah, a massively good performance from Ross. I say, as much as he's to talk of the smack on the chat, he does deserve to at least be pleased with the score that he's got, even if didn't necessarily do a great deal. I think the record that he's going to set here is the definitely a win for doing the least amount. If that's an award, say very few transactions, very few roster moves. In fact, very few moves in general on that roster. And obviously didn't draft it.
I'd hold up Corona Bowl XIV against that one though, with the team that famously had two owners in a season, the rudderless touchdown syndrome to start the season up until I think it was about week 6 or 7. Then Jake comes in and he goes 5-5 over the last 10 games. So that was an auto drafted team as well. Let's not forget.
True, but when you have that sort of adversity, I suppose, halfway through a year, when you lose someone and bring someone else in, it's a mess. There's a bit more to it. Yes, it's auto drafted, but many moves have passed since then.
It's also true. Yeah.
And also the level of competition, the seriousness people take it is pretty. So I think we take that all into account. But there's no doubting that team that Ross had there, and the one he had last year as well, was put together in a similar sort of way, and both did a similar job. Albeit this one has gone absolutely nuclear in the last 2 weeks and has won the title. So, but there's no taking that away. That's it. The winner is the person who has the most amount of points in this week, and that is Ross. So, congratulations to him. As for Ollie, I don't think that he'll feel particularly sore over that because there's nothing really that he could have done. And at the same time, are you really going to play Jamison Crowder over a guy like Calvin Ridley? Probably.
Yeah.
So are you going to play Deshaun over Jalen Hurts, who did well for you the previous week? Possibly not. But score 122 points, as you say, in this game, in this time, is pretty good. Just got beat by the better team, and then when that happens, you can't really help but just to go, fair enough.
No, yeah.
But he got there, and I think that's a real achievement for Ollie, who for a long time this season probably thought he wasn't going to get anywhere near the playoffs, let alone the final, and yet did. So yeah, that's it. And by the way, that's it. Just to finish off my summarization of this one, it's always nice to see a new person win.
Definitely.
Gives a lease of life to not only that person, but a lot of other people as well who perhaps look and go, oh, I'm never going to win this, and yet they do. I speak from experience in this one because I saw Nigel Benn win before I did, and then it gives you a bit of heart that you can do it. Just perhaps next year we won't auto draft Ross's team.
We'll see. Yeah, because Ross has been liking the auto draft the last couple of seasons.
Absolutely, I see. I think that there are reasons to miss the draft. All right, there are reasons to miss the draft, but this year when you win, you can't really miss it. So,
no.
You're no longer an underdog and no longer a joke.
Exactly, and you'll have a draft video made for you if you are not at said draft to watch the video made specifically, well, but made about you. Yeah, you make a good point. Yeah,
that's right. I like the comedy aspect, but now once you've won, you've got to keep put that one side for a year perhaps, and then and do it yourself and prove that you can do it. You can do it.
Sure. Yeah, there's just so much in this Corona Bowl, like so from the scoring, it just even leaving the podcast to this point as well, just further adds to the intrigue of obviously Kamara and Murray are both now on the COVID list. How different things could have been. Just to stick on Ross's team for the time being. I was kind of thinking about it. All the things that have to happen in a draft for you to win the draft, you always need the upside of whatever play you're getting to really hit that, your team's potential. And when you're having an auto draft team, the difficulty is you're mostly being left with players that have, yes, some upside because they're obviously got to be taken in round 2 for a reason, but also have some significant downside. Just everything that had to happen for Ross's team to turn out the way it did. Let's start at the top with Aaron Rodgers. He looked pretty much toast after last season. No one was really expecting him to come back, and here he is with an MVP campaign. In hindsight, you can say, well, it was his first year in the first scheme, so now that he had a year under his belt with that, maybe that was the difference. Who knows? Because the team around him didn't really change, which was part of the reason no one was predicting a bounce back. You've got Aaron Jones, which, similar story, very injury-prone guy in the Packers offense last year, very inconsistent, obviously had other running backs taking work away from him at times as well, yet he remained at least the 1A in that backfield and had many a good week this season. Mike Evans already spoke about how there were a lot of doubts around what he would do in this new Buccaneers offense. Stephon Diggs is an obvious one. This is almost a twofer. Not only was he on a new team in a COVID-shortened off-season, but you also needed a Josh Allen that would take the next step forward, which again, no one was really predicting. Kamara is obviously the lock, but again, he was coming back off of kind of a lost year in a way last season. And then for all of those players to absolutely hit on the upside, and I would say probably the upper side of the upside as well, it's just phenomenal. Yes, you can say, okay, it's auto-drafted, but Ross doesn't change his team. For whether that's a tactic or not, it was working, and he saw it was working, so he stuck with it. So, yeah, just almost a Cinderella story in a way from where that team started to get to where they ended. And then looking on the other side, Ollie, for Ross to score 180 points basically in the Corona Bowl, and to make this not the most one-sided Corona Bowl in all time, which was Ollie still holds the record of winning against Phil, where it was, I think, just over a 60-point differential. That's phenomenal. Even more phenomenal when you look at the team Ollie is playing. He is playing Jalen Hurts, Jeff Wilson, Gus Edwards. I'm going to throw T. Higgins in there as well, because any of those guys, you would have said at some point in the season they'd be starting a Corona Bowl. You would say, my God, it's happened to Ben again, or something like that. And for Ollie to then go for 121 points, and most of those players actually largely being the reason why they did so well, it's just crazy. The whole game was crazy for so many reasons, and Ollie was agonising over choices he could have made, like you said, playing Watson, playing Crowder, which I don't think was ever really something you would have do over any of those players. Like you said, the only one you're doing it over is Ridley, so it's only 11-point difference. And trying to select a defense on the day, there were a few he could have chosen. He maybe would have gone with the Panthers, who did have a good day by the end of it, but the Cardinals were on the Saturday, if we don't forget. So that Ollie had to make a call early on that one, which didn't help. But like you say, I think even had he done all of those things, it still wouldn't have been enough, and arguably would have been more painful than it was. So just a great game. Congrats to Ross for winning his first Corona Bowl. Congratulations to Ollie for doing as well as he did and making the Corona Bowl. A great way to finish what's been a very turbulent season. I think it's fair to say.
Oh, very much so. I said, but one that we didn't think was going to happen, and it could have been an awful lot worse. And I think we're about to see potentially the problems that we could have had in the midpoint of the season in the next month or so, because whoever makes the playoff, Super Bowl, whatever, are going to have to deal with COVID in a way that's going to be different from the rest of the season because of just how virulent it is now.
Yeah, I think we're seeing that a lot in the Premier League is probably great, because where we're seeing our cases, I mean, we are nowhere near as bad as America is, but our cases are obviously the highest they've ever been as well, and that is filtering through now to football as well. I don't know how the bubble system compared, I say bubble system, there's not really a bubble, but how the Premier League is shielding itself against COVID versus how the NFL is shielding itself against COVID. But I don't know what, obviously players in the NFL are getting loads of cases still. Somehow they're managing it and playing it anyway. But like you say, it can really hit the fan. I think the one thing the NFL has on its side now that we are at this point is that they can take more perhaps extreme measures just for the playoffs, where they could say, okay, we're going to play all the playoffs in this one city, or players have to be confined to hotels for the entire week, something along the lines of that to help it. But you're right, we in the committee obviously came up with contingency plans before the season even started, and we didn't really have any contingency plan that resulted in a Corona Bowl. We would have had to have, I think, gotten to the playoffs basically for there to be a Corona Bowl in the first place. Yeah. So, it had to be a long stretch of time we had to make it through, and obviously even in our own league we had some things to cross along the way in terms of how to balance competitiveness and fairness for the players that were testing positive on respective teams. So you're right, yeah, it's very good that we were able to get here and enjoy basically a normal LOC season in the midst of all this chaos.
Right, yeah, absolutely. So, and that's I think I don't know if it's the same for everybody else, but it's certainly been one of those things that keeps you going each week.
Yeah,
with the lack of things to do, it has
definitely.
It takes over your mind in certain times, it's something that keeps you interested. We're talking about this. It feels like a long time since last Sunday because a lot's happened. So,
definitely.
Between Christmas and New Year, always feels like a lot's happened. But it's only 7 days or whatever. Yeah. But it's been a bit like that. So week to week to week. It's quite amazing how 17 weeks have passed. I don't know how, for me anyway, quite quickly.
Yeah.
As a result of having something to focus on, Sunday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and repeat. So yeah, this has been great this year. It's been exactly the type of thing that's been needed, I think.
Definitely.
In times such as these.
Exactly, and at least we have Fantasy Premier League to keep us going with that.
Yes,
if nothing else. So, we won't look at all of the consolation games in detail. We will just summarise them. So, third place game, Ollie Gardner did win that, so that's Ollie's best ever finish. Just about failed you, Chris, in a fairly close game.
It was. CD Lamb absolutely failed me in the fourth quarter, so that was a good play, that.
Yeah.
And the snow in Green Bay. That's it. I can blame that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing else to blame. He was definitely the better team on the day.
Sure. And in the fifth place game, it was after the consolation part in week 15. It was Bare Necessities against the Dream Team, which I think the Dream Team was they were the eighth seeds entering it. And they played Bucking the Trend in week 15, obviously, who just missed out narrowly on the playoffs. Viv beat Bucking the Trend, so he goes to fifth place game. And for my dad, he was the sixth place team taking on Tom, obviously in seventh. He beat him as well, so another sputtering week for Tom there. And my dad did end up winning it, so my dad does win the consolation bracket, you could say. He takes fifth place there.
Something.
Indeed, he got something. Yeah.
Next year, you wait. It's his year. He's won the consolation bracket. It's like winning the Europa League and then winning the Champions League the next year. It's his year next year. He's got to do something, especially if the season gets extended and we bring the new playoff system in. He's got to be the prime candidate to get in the wild card for that, because he's been the highest scoring team for 2 years. And it's ridiculous how he's not there.
Yeah, well said.
I'm going in.
So that means Viv is the sixth place team. Then we go to the seventh place game, which is like the runners-up of the runners-up of the runners-up, if you'd like. But it was Tom against Bucking the Trend, and Tom did rekindle the form his team had. Not in the recent few weeks, but for the large part of his comeback. 134 points to 62. And Mike, from being within a hair's breadth of making the playoffs, ends up finishing in 8th overall. It's just how it goes sometimes, I guess, in fantasy.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right. We said that team was boom and bust all year. It's taken a tumble, but yeah, that is the difference, isn't it? You know, it's the difference about coming, third or fourth is, well, as proven in the last round. That's it, 25 points.
Yeah, indeed. And obviously the rest, there are no consolation brackets, and we can't be bothered to manually do them for the last two. So the 9th to 12th is just as it was. So Pat 9th, Ben 11th, 10th, me 11th, and Phil at the bottom there in 12th. So that was the final standings for the year. Yes, that leads us on then nicely to the awards. We haven't got a debate corner, John. Can you introduce the awards for us, please? He makes a great awards host, let me tell you.
Absolutely, I have him every week.
So we'll start from the bottom to the top. We've got the LOC Award. I think I spoke when I mentioned the nominees, but we'll do it in a little bit more detail. So for this, we have Coach Gardner, Coach Leach, Coach Taylor, and Coach Nunn. So for Coach Gardner, he has a relatively low points against. We can see he had 1245 points against there, but on top of that, he also had among the lowest points forward, certainly of the playoff teams. But if we go to the true ranking, I think it says in there for points forward, he got 6, so he was about in the middle actually, but he did make the playoffs, let's not forget, and won the division, so it was a bit fortuitous at times there. I think I noted this down probably more nearer to a few weeks before the end of the season, and his team did obviously pick up a bit, but he did have a low points against. Chris, you had low points against as well. I think the second lowest, but your team was still very good. You obviously had some COVID stuff to overcome as well, but you did quite well as well. Mike, as we said, as you just said, very boom and bust. He did have the lowest points against out of anyone, the only team to have under 1,200 points scored against them. His points forward were okay, but nothing to set himself apart from the pack, so he did benefit quite a lot from that low points against, I think. But we will give credit where credit's due. He did not get many gypsy wins this year.
No,
yeah. And then we have Coach Nunn, which, as he wound up, goes on to win it. But as we know, the auto draft and not changing of the team, so you could argue quite fortuitous to get to where they did. We do try and frame the awards on the regular season and not inclusive of the postseason stuff, but. Chris, have you got any particular inclination of where this award should go?
It's quite difficult not to this year. I think for any one person to have one team that goes from top to bottom whole season without a serious injury, COVID, a ban, anything, and win the thing, and as we just outlined in the review, with all those upsides going with him, I honestly think there has to be one winner in this, Nath.
Yeah, I think Ross is definitely a worthy winner for the LOC Award this year. He's the usual nominee, obviously, with the auto-drafted teams and not changing the team, but yeah, definitely put himself over the top. And you raised a good point, actually. Was he the only team to not have a COVID-implicated player? Obviously, he has, technically, in Week 17, it's come now, but he may have been the only team to not have any COVID problems.
Yeah, that would be surprising if he didn't. I know that obviously everyone else either had at least an injury or a COVID. So I know that Ross didn't either an injury or COVID for any key player. I don't care about the bench because he didn't change that. But yeah, for any key player, he had Aaron Jones throughout. He did have him at midpoint of the year that went down. But otherwise, I don't think that's it.
Yeah, for sure. Our next award then, and I'm going to do a quick pivot to the nominations here and take Ross out of this one and put Pat in, because it is the Overachiever Award. I think Ross would have been on this initially for probably for more luck aspect of overachieving than actual overachieving. And obviously went on to win it, so you can't really overachieve much more than that, can you? For this one we have Ben. Obviously, he had an absolute nightmare in terms of injuries and COVID-related stuff. Some of the names he was plugging in on a week-on-week basis were just unfathomable. Yeah, it still came away with a 6-8 record, nearly getting to a 7-7 record. And let's face it, was actually still in with the chance of making playoffs for quite a while, despite all of that as well. We have my team as well. I played largely all the year without my top 3 draft picks. And then obviously had some other COVID and injury troubles along the way as well. Still got to 5-9. Again, a couple of close results could have been different, and it may have been closer to the playoffs than it was. But to get to 5 wins, I think, without your first 3 draft picks, basically, and other stuff going on, is quite difficult as well. Again, very similar vein for Pat. Obviously, he was without Michael Thomas for large swathes of the year. Joe Mixon. Again, a lot of drafted players he was without. He got to 7-7, and again, with a win and a little help, he could have even made the playoffs on the final day as well. So, good performance there. And we have Ollie as well. Again, he had to mix and match quite a lot throughout the year. He was dealing with injury woes from Julio Jones constantly, and this, that, and the other as well. So he did quite a good job to get to the playoffs and eventually the Corona Bowl as well. Now, I initially had in mind for this one, Chris, as an LOC first, for there to be multiple winners of this one, because so many teams struggled. It's a bit more spread out. You have injuries across all the teams. It felt it was very concentrated within a few teams this year. I don't know what your thoughts on where this award should go is.
Yeah, I think that anyone who had a negative record is out. That's it. Fair enough. Yes.
Sure.
Both you and Ben did corral difficult problems. But Ben's was all self-created because he went and picked number 1 in the draft. Your team, I think, would have been down there regardless. So I'd like, if we're going to share it with multiple people, then let's share it between Pat and Ollie at the top, because I think that Ollie, for obvious reasons, came out of nowhere, really got to the playoffs, got to the final, and basically wheeled and dealed his way to the final, which isn't easy. But Pat did have the nuclear start. I have to say, I don't know what he did in the first 7 or 8 weeks of the season, but every key player that he had just got killed off. Anyone he picked up got killed off. Yeah. And yet he still managed to recover to 7-7, and as you quite rightly said, could have made the playoffs on the last day. So it would have been very, very interesting if that had happened, because he would have been the clear winner of this award. But I think between the two of them, it's certainly merited.
So I would actually lean Pat, I think, for the award.
Yeah, I think if taking the regular season into account only, then I think you're probably right.
Yeah,
if you have the playoffs well, then Ollie gets his way in.
I think these awards are strictly like the NFL. We try and keep them to the regular season. So if we're going by that, we'll go with Pat. And to lend credit to what you were saying, for the first 3 weeks, didn't score over 80, or didn't score over 60 in 2 of the weeks. Obviously had that good week 4 and then dropped back down in week 5. Had a good couple of weeks. And then again another 57, but on the back end, much more stable. Certainly not like the Wild on Fire, but other than all over 80 after that, only 2 under 90, going up to so he really did do a good job by the end of it. And obviously he had to survive a lot to get there. So congratulations, Pat! You win the Overachiever Award this year. There you go. Well clapped. Our next award then is the Comeback Award. So for this we have Coach Barnes. Obviously Tom started 0-5, came all the way back to 7-7. Just an incredible turnaround, and again they an unfortunate loss at an unfortunate time kind of set them off the path to playoffs, but they wouldn't have made it anyway even if they'd have gotten one more win. Actually, no, sorry, that's a lie. They would have taken the wild card, so very close to completing an incredible comeback. We have Coach Allen again. Obviously, they had their bad start, starting 0-3. I think they were 1-4 through the first 5 weeks. Coach Gardner as well. He, overcoming, I suppose, last season, he had another middling year. I think 6 and 8 last year. He had some injury problems in the middle of the season to Chubb. I've forgotten who his other running back is as well, but the other running back as well, but he came back. And we included Coach Merritt on this one as well, because let's face it, he was basically in Florida after last season, after what had happened. We very much did not know if he would be coming back or retiring. He did decide to come back for one last rodeo. Didn't quite go to plan, but to even come back, I think from the way it finished with Phil last year, is noble as well. And obviously, let's not forget, he's playing from another continent and everything right now as well. So, Chris, where do you fall towards the comeback award? I think I've got one that's probably clearer in mind.
Yeah, I think if we can whittle it down to perhaps 2, and then we can decide from there. Hopefully your 2. Hopefully the one you've got in mind is one of my 2. Tom, from absolutely the depths of nowhere, came back to the 500 record, and I think that's unbelievably commendable. Yes, he rode on the coattails of Justin Herbert. We were talking about him earlier in the year. He listened to us, picked him up, played him. The rest is history. And Ollie Gardner as well, to come back from, say, a few middling years, in a division that was a bit to and fro, to then come back, get to 9 and 5, and come third, is an achievement I think we should merit. But I think that Tom's ability to pull himself out of a very desperate situation to get up to 1400, to get to a 500 record, I think that probably does it for me. Tom was who I was thinking as well. We have, Tom's the master is. He came back from 2 and 5 once. 1 and 5 would have probably been just the ticket to get him back, or I suppose he probably did go 1 and 5 after that 0 and 5 start, but he did go 0 and 5. And to basically go 7 and 2 after that, phenomenal. Had the season started, at week 6. He would have definitely been the hottest team in the LOC and the team to beat. So, definitely worthy of the comeback award there for nearly making playoffs, being within a win of doing it. And I think they were second highest in points forward as well at the end of it all. Third highest. So, good performance there as well. Next is the League Commissioner's Award, which is obviously my award to give away. For this we have you, Chris, for being on the pod. Exemplary attendance record this year, and also if you were to score performance, very, very highly on that as well. So I'm sure the viewers are all very glad to have you on the show. That's it. So I'm sure some of them are when I have a scathing review of their teams, Phil. I hope that I've been at least a little bit balanced throughout the course of the year. Your criticism the criticism haven't been too much.
No, definitely not. You need to be fair and balanced in the colour commentator role. It's fine. Tom, for the E.Locker once again, he must have done a record for Power Rankings articles, or his own record at least. I think he only missed 1 week after all said and done, so good job there. Ross as well, we can't overlook the team names, the only one that did it this year, but some of them were pretty great as always. And we have you again, Chris, as the league ombudsman, but I'm going to go for the podcast, because it's been a number of years since we've obviously had you for pretty much every single show. We've had to do it in slightly different circumstances, but I think you've done a very good job with all of that, and working around your job as well. Obviously, sometimes you have to work late into the evening, and you have to go straight into the podcast straight after that, which isn't easy. So no, I think a worthy award. I think that may be your 3rd time winning the League Commissioners Award.
It may well be. Then thank you very much. So I enjoyed doing it. More to the point, I enjoyed doing it, and it's it does make it makes my week at that go that little bit better, and hopefully people enjoy it. So yeah, I guess you wouldn't listen if you didn't enjoy it. So.
Indeed, and we get to have a nice chat if nothing else. So.
Absolutely. So yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's great. So even if I didn't win anything this year, I'm happy with that.
Exactly. You've got an award, a nomination, and an award there. But then we do get to the interesting awards. So we'll start with General Manager of the Year. So this is, of course, to do with assembling a team. So either the draft, through trades, which I don't think we had any this year, if I recall, or free agent acquisitions, and obviously, roster management, using the reserve spots as well, would fall into that category, and obviously finding the replacements. So for the nominees for that, we have you, Chris. You drafted a very good team once again. You obviously had to handle some COVID problems of your own if we just flick to your final team for the year. So you drafted Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, James Conner, all had very good Spurs. James Conner obviously had some injury problems. DJ Moore, even though he was a difficult one to decide when to play, he was a good player to have, so that further emboldens your GM candidacy. Naeem Hines as well, who was basically the whore of the LOC with the amount of teams he was added onto this year, but you were wise enough to actually keep him and ride through the peaks and troughs. Terry McLaurin, which was a great mid-round pick. Obviously, you added Curtis Samuel near the end of it as well, and let's not forget the Steelers D. I'm pretty sure you drafted them as well, didn't you? So, not too much on the free agent front, but obviously you had the COVID stuff to overcome. Did well with handcuffing James Conner and such as well. So, nomination for you there. Coach Sherwood, okay, you say he only went 6-8, but again, just to go what he went through. If we talk through his draft first, we can go all the way back to the draft recap here, I think. The worst draft perhaps he's ever had. Starting right at the top, obviously Christian McCaffrey went down. Chris Carson was good, but had his injury problems too. Dak Prescott, injury. We can't factor too much into the injury, but you do have to consider it. Mark Andrews, again, he was very kind of boom or bust this year. He was touchdown or bust. Raheem Mostert, obviously injury woes as well. Darren Waller, outside of that explosive game he had he was middling for a 6th round pick, not bad. Jared Cook was a head scratcher at the time. Jamison Crowder would have been fine if he hung on to him, and nothing really else of note there. So really not a great draft for Ben, as we know. But to go what he went through with all those injuries and then assembling the teams he had to with COVID and everything to get to 6-8. Have an okay points forward, nothing special. Obviously, he was playing QB roulette all season long. Picked up Brandon Ayuk along the way. Giovanni Bernard, who always seems to find his way onto Ben's team or someone's team. Myles Gaskin as well was a really underrated ad. So he did a great job assembling that team to get them to where they did in the end. Coach Barnes, like we already said it, if the season started in week 6, would have been the best team hands down and the best draft hands down. They drafted Tom Brady, who was great, Allen Robinson, who was great, Miles Sanders, who when he was on the field was great, Keenan Allen, once Herbert came into the fray, was great, Devontae Adams, obviously spectacular. He missed a few games to injury, but still very good. Rob Gronkowski, added him at the right time. Obviously he was drafted, I think, by Ross's team initially, but he picked him up just before he kind of found his inner Gronk again. He added Justin Herbert again to really propel the team on. Drafted Antonio Gibson at the time. Obviously Adrian Peterson was still there, but he took a dart on him and it paid off. Todd Gurley as well, even though the final points weren't great, he went through a stretch of, I would say, being a lower end RB1 if we just show down here. Multiple double-digit points games. It was only really near the back end where he started after the bye that he fell away. We've got to recognise Younghoe Koo as well, who was basically like another running back at times. Adding him. So just not too much on the free agent front, but just a great draft, and a shame for him that it took a few weeks for them to really start firing. And then we've got Coach Burdett as the last one. Again, this was a team that obviously had a lot of turnover, so if we start at the draft for them, so Burdett and Naders, there they are. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire, always a bit of a speculative pick when you take a rookie that high up in the draft, no matter what team or what background they have. It is always a risk where you don't have that history, but it did pay off. obviously, for Ollie, even when Le'Veon Bell came to Kansas. Julio Jones, when he was on the field, was great. Odell Beckham, obviously, was okay, and then he got injured. Double dipping with Calvin Ridley was a very good tactic as well. He did play Julio and Calvin quite a lot, and it was working. Deshaun Watson was a great 5th round pick, obviously performed better than some quarterbacks higher up than him. Ronald Jones in the 6th round, which at the time, it was a very difficult one to tell, and I think the draft happened just before they signed Fournette as well, but he obviously kept him on the roster all year long and it paid off. Tyler Boyd was good. Jalen Reagor, who obviously he left and came back, pitched in quite well. CeeDee Lamb would have been good, I think, had Prescott stayed healthy. He started the year very well. Not much else at the bottom there, but then we've got to obviously look at Ollie's current team. He obviously had probably what was the free agent acquisition of the year in James Robinson. He obviously added Jalen Hurts at the right time to propel his end of the season on. Jeff Wilson, Gus Edwards, loads of really random names. He added T. Higgins again, double dipping. He had Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins for large stretches of the year as well. So Ollie did a lot with the waiver wire and combined that with the draft to really put in a great performance, I think, general manager wise this year. Do you have any leanings on where the award should go, Chris?
Yeah, I think whittling it down again. I think we've got to go between Ben and Ollie. I think Ben's general skills of getting himself the players at the right time got him to 6 and 8. Obviously had a sniff of a 500 record as well. I think if he had done that, bearing in mind the draft and the problems that he had across the course of the year, he probably would win it hands down for me. But the bad draft does sort of sway it as well because, you know, a lot of the problems that he perhaps had were a bit self-inflicted.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, like injury happens to everyone. It can't be avoided. But where injury happens, you're then looking to. For my team's a good example where I did lose Barkley, Eckler, and Golladay for large portions of the season. I at least crushed those mid-round receivers and Will Fuller, Tyler Lockett, Robert Woods, those kind of guys that really, you know, bailed me out. Ben didn't really have any of that in his draft. No,
it was too many speculative moves and tight ends, and yeah, it was a bit strange. So I think that sort of, on one hand goes for him, and on the other hand goes against him. So to get to the final, and I think Ollie would not have got to the final had he have not GM'd his way to it.
Yeah,
I know that we're doing this, you know, say through the regular season, but even then, to sneak into the playoffs and then get into the final by playing the guys that he did, I think that that deserves some recognition. And yeah, as you say, a completely different team from season's beginning to season's end.
Yeah, and if we look at week 14, so he was starting Andy Dalton. Let's not forget that. Obviously, yeah. Ronald Jones, James Robinson, Tyler Boyd, a lot of the draft guys there. But as you say, along the way, I don't know what his bench looked like at that time, but he did have to do a lot of spot starts here and there. So yeah, I think Ollie's a worthy winner this year for GM of the year, so congratulations, Ollie. And then that brings us to the big one, you could say, which is the Coach of the Year award. So you kind of factor in GMing a bit, but you put less emphasis on it because really it is all about that team selection. Just knowing, you know, how to pick the team, get the players you need and everything like that. So for that, we have Coach Taylor. Obviously, he did have an up and down year, but came just that close to making playoffs. He obviously added Tua at the right time. He had before that, I can't remember who his first quarterback was, but he had a Taysom Hill as well. He played some rando players, but also he had Tyreek Hill, DK Metcalf, Leonard Fournette. Trying to pick this team was an absolute nightmare with the boom-bustness nature of all the players they had along the way. But Mike did a very good job, and we can take into account, obviously, the coach ranking here as well in this award. He was 4th in that metric, 135 points. By no means bad at all, so pretty good performance there. Ollie's in it again. We spoke about all the wheeling and dealing and stuff he had to do, but then it's great to get those players on your team, but to actually pick the right ones and get the results from it is something else entirely when you're doing all of that chopping and changing, and Ollie did know when to stick with the good guys and when to perhaps take a dart throw with someone else over someone more established. And again, if we look to the point rating, I think Ollie was actually quite bad in this metric. He was 10th with 214 points left on the bench overall. So despite all that, could have been even better. Then we've got my dad, obviously, like you say, highest scoring team on the year, 7-7. It was just, again, kind of boom bust at the bad times. They ran into a team where they had a good week. They played the team with an even better week. They obviously drafted very well. Josh Allen, Dalvin Cook, Jonathan Taylor. Let's not forget that crazy how many rookie running backs they took, despite only being able to play 3 on top of having Dalvin Cook as well. At least they held on to Jonathan Taylor and J.K. Dobbins. Obviously, DeAndre Swift and Cam Akers made it elsewhere, but all of them paid off in the end, hilariously.
Yeah, absolutely.
He obviously drafted Travis Kelce as well. I mentioned just now. Melvin Gordon did quite well. Again, he was a guy that had a lot of question marks with Philip Lindsay being there and no one really knowing how good the offense would be. They also only had 2 receivers for large parts of the season to go between, which was Allen Lazard and Devontae Parker, but he seemingly made the right choice each week. It didn't really hamstring them that they had no depth at receiver. So a great performance there. And if, again, we look at the coach ranking, I think my dad, he finished 3rd in this. So, with all of that, still to finish quite high, 128 points left across the bench over the whole season. It's less than 10 points a week, let's not forget. So it's a great job too. And then we've got you again for the Coach of the Year award, Chris. If we start with the points, 202 on the bench, not great, but around just under mid-table. Obviously, your team had the regular season title this year, 9-5. On points versus Ollie Gardner. We already spoke about the GM award, the great guys you assembled. So another all-round good year for you as well, Chris. Where do you think we should go with Coach of the Year?
Well, I never vote for myself, and I don't think I win that. 202 points left on the bench. Yeah, a lot of lackluster performances. I think that takes me out of the equation. I say yes, 9-5, but
I suppose if we factor the points against as well, which was fairly low.
Exactly that. It's not quite as good. I do think there is a 3-way tie here. Obviously, otherwise, and I'm struggling to sort of work it out because all 3 have their own merits. Now, Davis has left the least amount of points on the bench, and I think that if he'd have made the playoffs, I would be very, very happy to give him this, because not only has he utilised the players that he's got, had a good draft, and largely kept it simple across the course of the year. He's been hit with a lot of big scores, but he's put a lot of big scores up himself, and I think that's a marking of a good team. Mike, as I say, boom and bust. That's it. But it's like, to his credit, did draft well, did pick the right players at the right time. Just over the last few weeks of the year, perhaps slightly less depth than he otherwise had. And Ollie, well, for the same reasons as me, really, is that he can be a great GM and he got himself there. But over the rest of the year, he did make life quite difficult for himself by largely not picking the right quarterback each week. So let's give it to Dave. I know it's a bit weird. I know they didn't make the playoffs.
Well, it wasn't a losing record. You could say 7-7, so it hits that bill.
It wasn't, and he put together a good team. I want to recognise that.
Definitely.
I want to putting together a good team and just not getting there, because next year he would be in the playoffs.
Exactly. Yeah. If they had, like you say, if the regular season had been extended this year, my dad would have been in the playoffs right now. I don't know how they would have fared or how the seedings would have happened, but potentially could have been in the Corona Bowl as well, possibly win it depending how the matchup shaked out and whatnot. Excuse me. But yeah, highest points forward. Coach ranking was 3rd, and if you factor in that I think it was only Ben and Ross ahead of him, it's kind of like 1st, with all the injuries Ben had, and obviously Ross not really doing much on the bench and it all being top heavy. But you look at the first 5 weeks of the season, my dad lost 3 games where he scored 110, 124 and 96. All of those games he lost by less than 6 points. Any one of those, and he's in the playoffs. If any one of those goes a different way, he's in the playoffs. Let's not overemphasize it too much. He did have a little spurt where, a couple of 75s there after that. and then a few lower scoring ones down the stretch. But those 3 games at the start that he lost proved absolutely pivotal because any one of them go a different way. He's in the playoffs, and he also had the highest points against. So obviously that lends credence to that. Just looking down, he only had, I think there was only a handful of games, maybe 4 or 5, where he had less than 100 points. He
must be setting the record for the amount of 120-point games this year, because that's a lot of 120 games.
Yeah, it was a lot of 120-point games. So I completely agree. I think despite the record not being there, that largely wasn't my dad's fault. The team was good. He picked well. So yeah, definitely a worthy Coach of the Year winner there. And that is the 2020 awards. So that's it, Chris. We've finished another season of the LOC Report.
There it is. That's it. We've gone from start to finish. We've gone from April to January. Can you believe it? We have done it. And we've done every week since July.
Yes.
Which is all crazy. So yeah, I have to say it's been, as I said earlier on, one of those things that just keeps you going and necessary this year, and hopefully it won't be the same going into 2021. But I have to say it now. It's not looking very good. There is light at the end of this tunnel, I think, but just not for now. It's a long way off until we can do what we used to do again. But yeah, it's bittersweet really, because this time of the year you should be looking forward to especially in sports, you should be looking forward to the Super Bowl and the playoffs and whatever. But you just get the impression that it's a bit different. It's going to be very different for certainly the first half of this year, and there's still a lot of unknowns to come. So yeah, I don't want to finish on a sobering note. I want to be positive. It's but you also can't fail to to appreciate what kind of world we live in now, as opposed to the one we left last year. So
yeah, for sure. And you're right about the Super Bowl and everything. Like the Super Bowl is going to be in Florida, so I think there will probably be fans in the stadium. It's in Tampa's stadium. I'm not sure what the rules are, but I'm pretty sure. Knowing how Florida's handled it so far, they don't really care. So, but it won't be a full house, I don't think, which will be obviously very strange to see. Like you say, that there is the light, the vaccines are coming. Maybe not by the next time we talk to you in April. Probably not by that point, but who knows. But by my next season start, maybe some of us will have at least received the vaccines. Or did you say, it's still going to be a while till things properly get to the new normal. I would say they may not ever go quite back to the way they were for some time ahead. But at least we have each other in the LOC. That's what we're here for. Absolutely. They're not just about fantasy football.
Except you, Phil, because you're leaving. So you're on your own, mate.
yeah.
Then again, you're in New Zealand, and as we keep hearing again and again and again, that's it. They're the only country to have eradicated COVID. Well,
twice, isn't it?
Twice, yeah, that's it. So you tell me, that's it. But then again, that's it. Then again, that's what you get for being an isolated island in the middle of nowhere.
True.
With 4 million people. So congratulations to New Zealand.
Yep.
And to Phil, who's managed to make it out of COVID into the new already.
Very
but as a result, leaving us. So, we're down to 11 next year.
Wow.
So we might have.
Yeah. Well, we'll see who will come in. And it was pretty jarring to see the New Year's celebrations, not only in New Zealand, but also in Wuhan as well, where they were all obviously shoulder to shoulder and everything.
It gives you at least a bit of positivity that after a year, it seems to be a bit better. But also it gives you a really galling feeling going, you fuckers started this. That's it. And on that note,
that is the end of the LOC report in the 2020 season. Sorry. So, we hope you enjoy the rest of the playoffs. And if you've got, probably this is your last day, like it is mine. We'll be back with you, like I say, in April. Till then, stay healthy, stay happy. We'll see you later. Goodbye.